Hey guys, welcome back to more Prorevenge neighbor Karen stories. In this video, a dumb Karen repeatedly damaged and vandalized my mailbox, not realizing that this is a serious crime. Let's dive right into the video full of entitled Karens. The first one is titled, "Am I the a-hole for setting up a computer trap that kept restarting my coworker's computer?" So I've been working at a medical office for a little over 4 years now. For the most part, it's been a great job, decent pay, good benefits, and I generally get along with my coworkers. Well, except for one. There's this coworker who started about a year and a half ago. From day one, she made it clear that she believed she was above everyone else, including me. She constantly claimed that she worked way more hours than she actually did, and even when she was physically at work, she did virtually nothing. I'm talking spending entire shifts scrolling through social media and online shopping. Meanwhile, the rest of us were busting our rears, taking care of patients and keeping the office running smoothly. The doctor who owns the practice is extremely hands-off with management. He is an amazing physician, but when it comes to running the business side of things, he basically lets everyone do whatever they want. This of course created the perfect environment for my coworker to get away with her behavior. I tried the proper channels first. I documented specific instances where she claimed overtime but was not actually working. I collected screenshots of our scheduling software showing when she was actually on the clock versus what she claimed on her timesheet. I even had evidence of her taking 2-hour lunches when she was only authorized for 30 minutes. I compiled all of this information and presented it to the doctor, hoping he would address the situation. His response though, "I'm sure she's doing her best. Let's all try to work together as a team." That was it. No reprimand, no investigation, nothing. Just a generic comment about teamwork, while this person continued to steal from the business and create more work for the rest of us. After that conversation, my coworker somehow found out that I had gone to the doctor about her behavior and she made my life at work even more difficult. She would accidentally delete my notes in our system, conveniently forgetting to relay important messages from patients meant for me, and would constantly make snide comments about how some people need to mind their own business. The last straw came when I overheard her bragging to another coworker about how she had spent the entire previous day online shopping while claiming to do a full day's of work. She laughed about how she was gaming the system and that the doctor was too oblivious to ever notice. That same day, I stayed late to finish up patient notes that I couldn't complete because I had to cover for her lack of work. Something in me snapped. I'm fairly tech-savvy, not an IT professional by any means, but I know my way around computers better than most people in our office. My coworker, on the other hand, could barely figure out how to attach a file to an email. She was constantly calling me over to help with basic computer issues, which I always did because despite everything, I still believed in providing good patient care, and her computer problems sometimes affected that, so I hatched a plan. One evening, after everyone had left, I stayed behind to catch up on some work. What I actually did was remove Internet Explorer from her desktop and replace it with an identical looking icon that, when clicked, would trigger an immediate restart of her computer. The script was simple enough to create and she would never know the difference just by looking at it. The next day I arrived early, curious to see what would happen here. My coworker showed up, surprisingly on time for once, got her coffee and settled in at her desk. I pretended to be engrossed in morning paperwork but kept one eye on her. Sure enough, the first thing she did was reach for her social media fix. She clicked the icon and immediately her computer went black. Then began the restart process. "What the hell?" she exclaimed, looking around to see if anyone had noticed. "Computer trouble?" I asked innocently. "It just shut down on me for no reason," she muttered, clearly annoyed. That's weird. Maybe it's updating or something," I suggested, and once her computer restarted, she tried again with the same result. This went on several times, each attempt causing her increasing frustration. By the third restart, she was visibly angry. "There must be a virus on this stupid thing," she declared loudly, hoping the doctor would hear and perhaps give her the day off. Want me to take a look? I offered, maintaining my helpful facade. "No, I'll figure it out," she snapped, clearly not wanting to appear incompetent. For the rest of the day, she periodically attempted to access the internet with the same frustrating result each time. The beauty of it was that all our actual work software functioned perfectly fine. Our electronic medical record system, scheduling software, and email worked without a hitch. Only her attempts to waste time were being thwarted. The pattern continued for the next few days. She would try to access social media or shopping sites, her computer would restart, and she would grow increasingly frustrated. The unexpected side effect was that she actually started doing her job. With no distractions available, she began processing patient forms, returning phone calls, and completing other tasks that had been neglected for months. One of our other coworkers noticed a change and commented during lunch, "You've been getting a lot done lately. What had changed?" My problem coworker sighed dramatically and said, "My computer has some kind of virus. It keeps restarting whenever I try to check my mail." A blatant lie, since our email system worked perfectly fine. "That is strange," the other coworker said. "Have you asked IT to look at it?" "They're useless," she replied dismissively. "Besides, I've been meaning to catch up on these files anyway." I hid my smile behind my sandwich. After about 3 weeks of this, I received a job offer from another practice across town, better pay, better hours, and a management team that actually managed. I gave my 2 weeks notice and prepared to leave behind the mess at my current office. On my last day, I contemplated whether to remove my little trap. Part of me felt guilty. It was a bit underhanded, after all. But another part remembered all the times I had stayed late to cover her work, all the patients whose care had been delayed because she couldn't be bothered to do her job, and all the money she had essentially stolen from the practice through her fraudulent time reporting. So I decided to leave it in place. As I walked out the door for the last time, she was still grumbling about the so-called virus on her computer. It has been 6 months since I left. I recently ran into another former coworker at the grocery store who told me that my problem coworker eventually quit, claiming that the outdated technology at the office made it impossible for her to do her job effectively. Apparently, in the 3 weeks between my departure and her resignation, no one could figure out what was wrong with her computer. The kicker? According to my former coworker, the doctor finally started paying attention to everyone's work after she left because he realized how much was not getting done when there was actually a vacancy in her position. He implemented a much stricter timekeeping system and now closely monitors everyone's productivity. So Reddit, am I the a-hole for creating this computer trap instead of continuing to try official channels? Should I have been more direct in my approach, or was this justified given the circumstances? And yeah guys, let me know in the comments what you think about this one. Do you think OP was the a-hole here or not? Comment number 1, not the a-hole. You did not get her fired, you just made it harder for her to goof off. She quit because she could not handle actually having to work for her paycheck. The fact that the doctor finally implemented better systems afterwards shows that your creative solution ultimately benefited everyone, especially the patients. Comment number 2, mild, everyone sucks here. Your coworker was obviously the biggest a-hole, and your boss was an a-hole for not addressing the situation when you brought evidence. But tampering with office equipment is not exactly professional. Effective? Clearly, but I probably would have just reported her to the state labor board for time card fraud. That said though, I'm not losing any sleep over your solution. And comment number 3, you're the a-hole, dude. I cannot believe everyone is praising you for this. You basically messed with company property because you could not handle a lazy coworker. Grow up. We've all had crappy coworkers before, but most of us just dealt with it like adults instead of playing stupid computer pranks like we are in high school. If it was that bad, you should have just found another job sooner instead of this petty revenge BS. And don't give me that "I tried proper channels" excuse. So what? Life is not fair. Welcome to the real world, where sometimes annoying people get away with stuff. What you did was childish and unprofessional, period. Added to the story, wow, I didn't expect this to blow up like it did. Thanks for all the responses. To answer some common questions, yes, I did try speaking directly to her multiple times before this. She would either laugh it off or become defensive and claim I was targeting her. And no, we did not have an HR department. Small medical practice with about 8 staff total, including the doctor. I also know what I did was not the most mature response, but after trying everything else, I was at my wit's end. Also, for those asking if this affected patient care, no it didn't. All the medical systems worked fine, it only prevented her from accessing non-work websites. Number 5, someone asked if I feel bad that she eventually quit, and honestly, no. The office is apparently running much more smoothly now, and patients are getting better care. And yeah guys, if you enjoyed these petty revenge / am I the a-hole stories, then please don't forget to like the video, because that would mean a lot to me. Let's try to reach 1000 likes. Thank you so much. The next one is titled r/Prorevenge, Karen keeps vandalizing my mailbox. I don't like loud people. No, I'm not talking about the people who like to party occasionally or do fireworks on holidays. I mean the people who will not shut up. The crazy Facebook moms who feel the need to document every time, God forbid, a delivery driver is late by 10 minutes or something. The HOA officers that complain about grass in your front lawn being an inch too high, stuff like that. Basically people who seem to get high off that. Well, think of all those stereotypical qualities meshed into one person, and now I don't really have to introduce Karen anymore. So Karen is my neighbor, a 30-something woman with an allegedly cop husband who makes sure to check on everyone once in a while, and if all is well, she will try to change that. Luckily, I had managed to stay out of her way for the most part and only heard about the stuff she did through other people. I'm a pretty introverted person and I like to mind my own business, but even still, I was well aware of her petty behavior in the past. She was the kind of woman to go snooping around when she found out that one of her neighbors had family drama or something like that. She has been caught in the past setting up security cameras that were very obviously used to spy on her neighbors, trespass on lawns and stuff like that, as I've checked, can possibly lead to actual consequences. She, of course, always found a way out of anything more than a slap on the wrist. Besides, given her behavior around the people who piss her off, I would say no one has called the cops on her just because they were scared. That changed a week ago. So I came home from work in the early afternoon on a Friday to find the mailbox at the bottom of my driveway with a huge dent in the middle. It was like someone tried to fold it in half and was noticeably beaten. I parked my car and went to inspect it. Needless to say, it was easy to rule out that it was caused by weather or some animal. Someone had deliberately broken my mailbox almost in half and then just left it. Most importantly though was the message carved into the side with jagged letters. It said, "Leave." It was like something out of a horror movie. I felt like I was being hunted. Who could possibly do such a thing, and why would they want me to leave? I did not have any friends that would do this kind of thing, nor did I think that I had enemies bold enough to damage my property without me even instigating any reason for them to do this. I ran inside. Terrified, I tried remembering everyone I had talked to recently and tried to think up anyone who would hate me enough to do this, but there was no one. Karen was a suspect at this point, sure, but she and I had barely met. I was just a quiet neighbor who lived a few houses down from her. I was too tired from work to deal with it more than trying to straighten out, which didn't go great, and go inside to rest for a bit. Later that day, I tried looking on Facebook to see if anyone in the neighborhood was having similar issues, not to sound super old, but I figured it must have been a group of teens trying to have fun by breaking stuff, and if anyone else knew them, I would find them online, but there was nothing. Even from what I saw in the drive-in, everyone else's mailboxes looked untouched, and I decided to also look up how much it would cost to replace the mailbox head. Since it was a cheap model, it was only gonna be around $20 to $30. Not something I was super upset enough, but it could have been free and I would still be super confused. Then, the next day, Saturday morning, I decided to get to the bottom of this. I felt terrible asking anyone about it, but I was not gonna be a pushover and let anything else happen. I took a few pictures of the mailbox and posted them, asking a few of my friends who were in the neighborhood if they knew about this. Of course, they knew nothing, but they did joke about how it was absolutely something Karen would do. As I was thinking about her, I remember that she liked to kinda lurk around the mailbox area, including the community one down the street. I was laughing with them. Sure, a petty woman could get really cranky, but I could never imagine someone probably a decade older than me doing something so randomly cruel. But anyway, I took their advice and walked myself down to her house. Another thing to note is that whether or not she's lying about her husband being a cop, she's not lying about her wealth. She got a nice house, I'll admit, and she's always talking about that giant pool she installed in her backyard. I mentioned this because if for whatever reason she wanted to bribe or threaten me financially, I wasn't going to be taking a risk by ignoring her. After finally getting a grip, I knocked on her door, and there's this thing that Karen likes to do when she's guilty, and she was doing it right now. Instead of the bratty, scrunched up face, she looked innocent and caring. I almost felt like I had the wrong house for a second. However, as soon as I mentioned the mailbox situation and asked if she knew anything about it, that persona immediately left her body. Like a child, she made a half-assed attempt to try and sound confused, but then she quickly turned to throw a tantrum. She started going off on me, yelling about how that was such a harmful accusation and how horrible of a liar I was. I quickly tried to intervene and explain that I was not blaming her, but it didn't amount to much. I don't think I could reach her volume if I wanted to. Eventually, she finished by explaining that if I ever tried to come over and harass her again, she was gonna press charges and get her husband involved. She then slammed the door in my face. I just kind of stared at the door for a second. It took a minute to process what just happened, and I was physically shaking. Again, I like the calm, quiet life, so something like that really caught me off guard. It was obvious now that Karen was the culprit, but no way was I talking to her again. I walked home trying to block her out and went on with my day. For a week, I thought that was the end of it. Well, when I would get around to it, I would fix the mailbox and I could put it behind me, right? Well, it was like as soon as I started to forget about it, Karen read my thoughts and decided I did not deserve peace from her. As I was getting in my car to go to work, I glanced back to see that my mailbox was entirely green now. Not like a natural mossy green, the ugliest neon green I've ever seen. When I got over to it, the smell of paint was overwhelming. Even the pole and the concrete under it were completely soaked in messy spray paint lines. I was pissed. Not only was my mailbox completely ruined, but there was now an additional coat of paint that I would have to scrape off parts of my driveway. I took pictures again and decided to document the time and day when this happened, knowing I might need it later. I went to work and tried to block it out until I go home. Would you believe it if I said that was not where it stopped that day? I came home to find the mailbox completely gone, not just painted and ugly. From the car, I thought it had been stolen or something, but as I got closer to the house, I noticed it lying flat in my yard. It had been completely knocked over, and from the looks of the grass, someone had run it over with a car. At this point, I did not care anymore. I didn't care if I got yelled at or threatened or anything. No matter what, I was gonna find a way to hold Karen accountable. Not just for me, but for everyone who's had to deal with her idiocy these past few years, I went straight inside and began digging for legal actions I could take. It was not hard to find out that mailbox damage, especially on private property, was actually a pretty serious thing. Under state laws, vandalism was a crime, as was tampering with mail, obviously. It could even be punishable by up to 3 years in jail or more. I was not planning on that happening, but it was crazy to see how much of a mistake she could be making. I went back to see if she damaged any of my actual mail, and as I found out, she did. Some of the paint had dripped through the front ledge and had stained some of my mail. Yes, it was junk mail, but there was no way for her to know that. I was weirdly ecstatic to be taking pictures and documenting Karen's crime scene. Despite the evidence, I was not going to take the chance of letting her get off easy with a warning or something. I would need to trap her in the act before I called the police so that they knew for sure that it was her and that she was a repeat offender. I tried to think of a way to catch her, and I eventually came up with something that I think was pretty damn creative. The next day, I got a new mailbox. It was much sturdier, but the main addition was the hidden spray paint nozzle I added underneath the ledge. I had rigged it so that unless I held down a button on the back, it would spray pink paint on anyone who touched it. Before long, I decided I was ready for Karen's next move, and luckily it was a Sunday, so I got to stay inside and wait for something to happen. I had noticed that the weekend was Karen's time to strike, so I was not surprised to see her walking by my house pacing a few times. Eventually, she made her move, yanking on the side panels and successfully ripping off a piece of my mailbox as well as setting off the alarm. Before she could even react, a gush of bright pink paint sprayed her outfit and she screamed out. I stayed inside but recorded it all on my phone, enjoying every second. It felt so good to see her make a scene and try to get the paint off her. As she began looking for me and banging on my door, I called the police. In no time, the cops showed up. I finally came outside with a smirk and introduced myself. Karen was visibly furious and started screaming at them about how awful I was and how I had ruined her with my paint prank. Well, it turns out this was not the first time they'd been called about Karen, so I already knew I had the advantage. After they let her get it all out, they let me talk. I calmly explained the situation and how the paint nozzle worked, showing that the only way to make it go off was if someone was trying to tamper with my mail. I then presented them with all the documented evidence. All Karen could do was watch in horror as I explained the federal laws about vandalism and how this was not Karen's first rodeo. After a few more questions from both of us, the cops not only sided with me, but decided that this was serious enough to arrest Karen right there. She did not technically resist arrest, but she was screaming at me the whole time. The two cops put her in their car and drove off, and suddenly the air felt fresher. Do I know exactly how long she will be gone? No, but I sure have not seen her around. She probably picked my mailbox because she thought I would let it slide. Through the grapevine though, I've heard that Karen will be spending some time behind bars for vandalizing my mailbox, and I would say she totally deserved that. What matters is I taught her a lesson she will never forget, and the neighborhood is a lot more peaceful without her antics. And before we end the video, we will read one last story from r/PettyRevenge that you don't want to miss. This one is titled, "My ex constantly locked me out of the bathroom, so I took matters into my own hands." So I was with my ex for a while. It was an unhappy relationship. I had bladder control issues and IBS. Whenever I needed to go to the bathroom, they would run in first and take their sweet time just to irritate me and make me suffer. This went on for a long time, and one day I just about had it. We had 2 cats and 2 litter boxes. One day he went running to the bathroom and was just playing on his phone and plucking his face hair and refused to let me go, so I decided I would just go poop in the cat's litter box. Well, not only was it a big poop, but I also peed a little. The cats literally would not use that litter box after, and then my ex came and was investigating it and saw, and he goes, "Wow, they pooped a lot, no wonder they want their box cleaned." And I just sat there and watched him clean up my poo and pee. That was near the end of our relationship and he never found out. And someone in the comments made a really funny comment. It was, "Somewhere those cats are still telling the tale of the day the giant marked our territory. Probably why they won't use that box anymore." OP asserted dominance in the most primal way possible. And yeah guys, if you enjoyed the story, please check out my playlist, otherwise I will see you again tomorrow.